Hey my fellow alchemists, today what we're going to be doing is some mini portraits of some Yorkies. This was a really fun experience. My client was in his mid-70s, so that skin is definitely very tender, very easy to screw up. So we went in real delicate with some liners, a 7 mag. We ended up using a 1-liner, a 3-liner, and a 5-liner. Most of the work was actually done with the 5-liner. The 3-liner and the 1-liner were basically for a little bit of the detail work. I ended up using the 1-liner basically for the white highlights only, and the 3 we did the eyes and some of the detailing with that. We ended up using the mag to do the blending on the back, a little bit of blending on the tongues and stuff like that. But definitely take a look, and I hope that you enjoy watching me do these tattoos. They came out really nice. You know, if you're really enjoying what we're doing here, you can always like, subscribe, and share the page. Besides that, I'm sorry we don't have music rights right now, so we are doing our best to make the videos entertaining. What we ended up doing is coming in, we're lining everything right now. We ended up doing the whole line work thing basically right around a 40%. You know, I know 20 or 40% depending on where the shade work was at. I knew I was going to be coming in really hard with a heavy black background, and I didn't want these Yorkies to look completely washed out by using a 20% for everything. So I think mostly I ended up using a 40%. So, you know, that definitely ended up doing a lot of the outline work like that. Around the eyes, the nose, stuff like that, I did end up going with 100% black. I usually use dynamic triple black, so that definitely, you know, is like as dark as night, you know, dark as my soul. No, anyways, yeah, we ended up doing a little bit of blend work to the portrait work that Tom did with this wolf beside me here. So what we're going to do is start doing that background work, and what we're going to do is blend it in so that way the wolf looks like it just continues on right behind these pieces. That way, you know, I'm not disturbing Tom's work or making it look less badass over there. Yeah, really important to just take your time. I ended up using a 100% black on the very bottom, and then came back in around an 80% on the edges. Worked out to a 40% by the end. You know, I did the 60%, 40% thing, you know, broke it down, feathered it between each thing, you know, and came back in and did the bottom the same way. You know, it's really important to take your time and feather your stuff out so that way the blending looks really nice. You know, it's okay to have a short gradient, but you want to have a nice smooth gradient. It looks a lot better, you know. Just take your time, you know. You're not in a rush or anything like that, you know. Just take your time when you work on these type of things. Then what you're going to do is I went in and just detailed everything with a 5-liner basically. I went in and started really taking my time, lightly working the skin, and just trying to make sure that it looked really nice, you know. I know this skin was really old and very delicate. Since it was older and more delicate skin, I wanted to make sure I didn't overwork it, so the liner was a little bit more appropriate for detailing. And that always works out real well when you're doing these small ones. It's okay to use a liner. I recommend brushing in a forward motion, not back brushing, so that way the depth of the needle is very even and consistent. It'll keep you from overworking the skin or running over 8 or 9 passes to get, you know, what can be done in a single or second pass. Besides that, you know, just take your time, work it through. You can see this black and gray starting to look real nice on this first dog. And you see I'm just taking my time working that whole entire first dog, getting all the black and gray done in it before I moved on to the next one. Then I'm going to start in with my mid-tones, come back in with my darker tones, and then my light tones. That's usually how I do these. I don't usually start with my darks. I don't start with my lights. I actually start in my mid-tones a lot of times, just to make sure how everything in the middle is going to feel, so that way I know where I can do my white highlights. I know what I'm doing. I can add in a lot more detail than what was in the photos, which is definitely important. This guy brought me some 90s photos that were definitely not looking amazing for these dogs, so I went in and really detailed the shit out of them. I did leave a lot of open gapping for the white highlights. If you're going to put in a lot of white highlights, you're going to want to do it on empty skin. So if you notice, I'm kind of taking my time and opening up a lot of little gaps for those white highlights later on, and that's going to really matter. Take my time, smooth it in, and yeah, you're going to end up making the dog look a little rougher, like almost like a little bit of an abrupt version of him before you get in the smoothness, and then you go back in with that smoothness, and all of a sudden it starts looking like that Yorkie. It starts looking real soft, starts looking like a happy puppy, and they end up being really happy puppies. Customer came out super excited. You know, unfortunately he lost both of his dogs, and that really kicked me into high gear on making sure that these things were perfect, because, you know, I would never want to lose my puppies. Yeah, thank you guys, and keep checking it out. Watch a little bit more. I think that the finished product's coming up in a little bit. I'm going to do some white highlights, and coming up now, I think we're getting into the white. I'm fairly certain, yep, that looks like white. We're going to just jam in. Oh, I didn't like the shading in the background. Something wasn't smooth enough. It looks like, I went in with a little bit of white, decided, nope, that ain't right. But before I go on with any more, let me go ahead and clean it up, get it going good again. Double check your work all the time. Make sure everything looks real smooth. That's what it's probably doing now, is taking the mag through and smoothing stuff up. And it looks like we moved on to the white. We're going to hit a bunch of white highlights. I do know I came back in and added a little shading to that dog's tongue that you can see there. So, I ended up doing white highlights on the tongue twice just to make sure that they were fresher looking, so that way they didn't dull out with the black and gray work that ended up being right next to it. Usually I don't worry too much about that type of thing, but if I'm going to put any shade work next to white highlights, I usually will retouch up the highlights or add in some secondary ones just to make everything pop a little bit more. We don't want to wash our highlights out with a gray wash. And here we have the finished product. Like I said, I did slam a lot of white highlights into these dogs, but definitely let me know what you think.